Hi, my name is Lauren Pires, candidate number 5134, and the question we will be answering today is how does your product user challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? For the cover, I placed my masthead on the top thirds of the magazine in order to follow typical magazine conventions. My masthead has serif font because it looks more elegant and fits my target audience more. I used red, black, and white because it follows typical magazine conventions and because it looks bright and pretty without being overwhelmingly girly. However, the positioning of the model and having the model look into the camera uses typical magazine conventions. The tagline challenges magazine conventions because it is on the top of the masthead, when most fashion magazines have theirs under the masthead. I made this decision because I felt that it was easier to see and it made the magazine look less cluttered. The website and barcode abide by typical magazine conventions. The website is very simple, along with the barcode which is displayed on the bottom left. Additional cover lines are in title description format, which also abides by typical magazine conventions. This impacted my work by making my magazine look more realistic. The bold titles allowed the reader to easily skim the page and find what they were looking for. The placement of the cover lines was effective because it allowed the entire cover to look even, not too cluttered. All of these are very useful because it helps brand my magazine and attract my target audience. I use typical magazine conventions in my table of contents by using 2 columns. The font sizes are also very similar to traditional magazines. I used 2 columns because I needed to have a wide amount of room to type my descriptions. I needed this room because I challenged magazine conventions by arranging the words toward the middle of the page rather than on the right or left. I used typical magazine conventions by having 3 sections. Although 2 of my sections are typically found on a fashion magazine, I added a new section which is not typically found in most magazines. However, I felt that because my magazine was discussing more pressing issues in the fashion industry, it was necessary to have this section because it did not really fit into the traditional idea of fashion. This impacted my work by making my magazine look less boring and traditional, even though I am still using those stylistic features of a normal magazine. I used 2 pages for the table of contents because the photos of my magazine were very large. I needed space for all of the articles. My design was completely inspired by Harper's Bazaar, which is a lot different from traditional magazines. The photo does relate to the article, but not necessarily because they were very broad. The simple image of a purse and a shoe leaves so much for the reader to wonder. I think that the way the stories are presented is also creative, which allows for these conventions to be accepted. The page number and folio are the same font because I did not want to be using too many fonts. The section header and the main cover line on my cover are also the same font because I wanted my magazine to have branding. One of the elements of my magazine that are evident included text hierarchy because it allows the reader to easily find what they are looking for and navigate the contents. The creative titles and the bolding of these titles are also used to grab the reader's attention, along with the arrangement of the text and photos. The title of my double-page spread is extremely large, which challenges magazine conventions. The font of the title is the same as my masthead, which follows magazine conventions. I used the serif font because I wanted to keep the elegant theme of the magazine. The font of my deck is in italics, which challenges magazine conventions. The drop cap is creative and is the same font as the title because it attracts the reader's attention and follows magazine conventions. The pull quote challenges magazine conventions because it is not in the middle of the text. It is by the photo. I made this decision because if a reader is just looking at the image, they might read the pull quote, which will persuade the reader to read the article. The photo for this double-page spread is in black and white, just like the cover. The model on the front cover is also the model on the double-page spread, which connects the main image to my double-page spread. The byline is a different font from everything else, which abides by typical magazine conventions. The page numbers are very large because it is deep into the magazine, which abides by typical magazine conventions. The magazine has only 1 photo caption, which challenges typical magazine conventions. However, since the pull quote was next to the image, I felt that it would be repetitive to put a caption. There are 2 columns of text on the page rather than 3 because I was inspired by the fashion magazine of Harper's Bazaar. The elements of the layout are enticing to the reader because the bold font and the title are an interesting italic font, and the deck will make the reader intrigued. This article is about the issues of the modeling industry and how it is plaguing models with body issues. People would want to read this because it talks about an important issue and gives the perspective of an actual model. The text does flow properly across the page because it is condensed into 2 columns. When talking about consistency, I used house style. My magazine represents specific social groups or issues. It discusses women with upper-level education because of the wording used throughout the actual articles. The magazine is also talking about issues in society from a liberal point of view. This is easily seen in the news section of the magazine on the table of contents. The social class definitely shows more of an upper level because of the brands that are discussed. The cover lines also relate to the specific groups because it talks about important issues. Teen magazines typically have more fun and funky fonts, so my magazine does not really have as many. I only have one more creative font, and it is cursive, which makes the magazine more specialized. The cover lines are all targeted towards women, which relates to my target audience. The social issues are important and targeted towards women 20 to 30. Writing about things that are important to society is something that magazines have done a lot lately. This allows my magazine to follow in their footsteps. I think it is important to shed lights on these ideas and listen to the point of views of these models. Once again, my name is Lauren Pires, and we were answering the question, how does your product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? Thank you so much. Have a great day.